Good morning, everybody, and great to have you online this morning, and really appreciate you guys joining us. This morning, we're going to talk about the 12 crucial steps to help build your business, survive and thrive during lockdown level 4. And yeah, can you believe it? We are back in lockdown. It feels like a year ago, and we all have our challenges of running our business. So just think about it. A year ago, we were in lockdown, and now a year later, we're still in lockdown. And how do you survive? How do you make your business grow? How do you make sure you come out the other side alive and well? Well, yeah, this morning I'm going to share with you 12 crucial steps that will help you survive and thrive during lockdown level 4. So, as we start, thank you for those guys who signed in early. Really appreciate it, and it's good to have you with us. See, we have a couple of regulars, and nice to be building that relationship. So, first of all, just wanted to highlight again the level of infections and our third wave. The graph on the left there talks about the third wave and how we're going to take things forward from there. So nice to be looking at that. Obviously, not a great place to be. Yeah, that's what's happening. I'll be your presenter today, and I'm really happy that you could make the time to join us. Yolanda, welcome, and nice to have you on the call as well. I'm going to have to admit some people as we continue, and I appreciate you guys for signing on in time. So, Yolanda, welcome. Nice to have you on board. And we're talking about the third wave, and today we're going to talk about the 12 steps that can help you run and make your business survive and thrive. So from my side, firstly, just a recap on what are the 12 things or the steps we're going to talk about. The first one is communication, a really important aspect of running your business, and really want to make sure we get the best of that, and then we communicate with all the parties in the stakeholders in our business. Second step is to be and stay positive. I know that that's seriously a challenge for most of us, but it is about, how do we make sure that we look at the future, not only as bleak and perhaps as cold and cloudy as it is today out here, but be positive. And how do we make sure our team stays positive and even our customers? Knowledge about the economic cycles and obviously the medical side of the third wave and perhaps a fourth wave that probably will hit us in South Africa. That's an important thing to know. We have to make sure that we understand that, nothing is the same, so we are going to have to change, and we'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to talk about cutting back on expenses to make sure that we have the necessary cash flow in our business. And that really also is about extending your credit and talking to your bank and your suppliers. The seventh step is about staffing and how do we do that and deal with that. Step 8 is about planning to work from home, and obviously a lot of us are already doing that, but how does that impact your business? Step 9 is about online and delivery. So going online is one thing, but how do you get your product or service delivered to your customer? Marketing and selling needs to be different because your message has to change. Ongoing repeating and repeat customers are important. So looking after the existing customers, we all know that it's a lot easier to sell to your existing customers. And lastly, the 12th step is about common sense and really having compassion. So those are the things we're going to cover today. I want to welcome you on board. If at all you feel that you have a question, please just raise your hand. We're not a big group right now, but yeah, I'd like to make this as constructive and as learningful as possible for you guys. So remember that your customers and your staff's perception is their reality. So it might not be true, but their perception is their reality. Let's just think about, 9,000 or so teachers refusing to be inoculated in Gauteng. So that's really a serious challenge, isn't it? But their perception about what this inoculation is all about, and are they going to get the right thing, and what is the follow-up on that, that is their reality, and that's why they make the decisions they make. So from my side, firstly, let's talk about then communication. We know that when it comes to crisis management, communication is important, but it's always must be focused on building relationships, right? So relationships with the different stakeholders in your business are important, and we need to make sure that we do that. So be those your fans, your followers, or your customers. And remember that always find yourself communicating in the right direction. So talking to them about their problems and how you can help them is the important side of it. Communication with your employees is as important, and the thin thread that holds everyone and everything together. We know that, but quite often I find that business owners are not talking to their staff and their teams often enough. So keeping them motivated, keeping them in the game is as important. Right, so we know that through communication is the response we get. So a really important thing is, okay, what are your staff members, what are your stakeholders hearing, and instead of what you are saying? Right, so that's an important aspect. So let's make sure that when we do communicate, we test for true communication. How often should we communicate? Well, as often as is needed, but definitely weekly and sometimes more daily. But you need to communicate to your team, your customers, your networks, your suppliers and stakeholders. If you have a supplier or a customer that's sitting in China, you're exporting to China, what do you tell them about the situation in South Africa, and how can you ship stuff, and what's the impact of that? And then lastly, your community, understanding that your community is a big part of what you should communicate to, and they are going to be your customers of the future. Right, so what are the number one action you need to take in terms of communication? Well, I think it's about updating your staff. If people are off on COVID sick leave, what's happening to them, when will they be back, how are they impacted, what does that do to them not being available perhaps, or if they are taken into hospital and hospitalized, what does that mean, and how do you fill that vacancy? Also, as we go along and the TERS and the UIF stuff has run out, will your staff get paid? Especially in the catering industry, restaurant trade at the moment, that's a huge issue. And there's no TERS and no other funds being offered to them. So there's certainly going to be some businesses there that are going to struggle. Do you have a clear policy, right? So what can your staff expect? And by this time, it's a year later, we've seen wave 2 go, and we're now in the third wave. But by this time, you should have a policy. What is it that you offer your staff, and how do you show empathy? Really important as well. Because right now, we all know of people close to us, our family, our network, that have either succumbed to COVID or have been seriously ill with COVID, or are still in the hospital with COVID. And how do we deal with that and make that right? So your number one action to communicate, talk about, is your customers. What should you communicate about? Well, there might be stock availability issues, and that could affect the product or service that you are delivering to them, so you can't supply them. You better talk to them. Service and the level of service that you are adhering to, and then essential services. What is it that you can do and should be doing in this day and age? Can you travel, and what does that mean? And I know we're not in full lockdown as we were before, but again, are your personnel able to travel? Are they healthy? Can they travel? And what do you do in terms of new services? Right, and then if you're going to launch new stuff and you offer new services, then you need to obviously tell your customers as well. Talk to your networks and your suppliers and your stakeholders. They're a really important part of your business, and keep them up to date. Make sure that they know what's happening in your business and what you are struggling with, and how you can help them and they can help you. Communication as the number one act is important with your networks. So you want to make sure that you have virtual meetings and connect with your staff and connect with your suppliers, but make sure that you are communicating with them. Make sure that that's ongoing. Your suppliers and stakeholders, okay, what do they need to do in terms of the expected shipment dates? We know that sea freight is quite a challenge today, and vessels are just passing harbors if they can't get the service. I know that Durban is one of those that some of my customers have battled to get deliveries from, and the ships are just passing because they cannot wait. And if you export, goods that are not like steel, but it's plants and it's other things, then obviously that's an important aspect that you need to know. Looking at the sea freight side, what are the delays, incoming or outgoing? Do you have any continuity plans? Do you need to carry more stock? What are you looking for backup? And all those things that you need to look at. And then in your community, are you going to be running different hours? Obviously with lockdown and all the curfews and so on, that impacts our business, and how do you really do those things? So my question to you is, looking at what we discussed quickly and briefly touched on, what are the things that you must do in terms of communication in your business? Is there anything that you need to sharpen your pencil on? Is there anything that you sort of think that, okay, this is something I haven't considered? Is there anything that in your mind is, that we haven't put on this chart, that in this presentation? So really like to know from you, what are the things that you are going to do on communication in your business right now? Does anybody want to give us some feedback, comment? Just unmute yourself and then welcome to add. Okay, if nobody wants to, that's fine. I think the main thing here is that go and identify those things that you have perhaps not done as well as you should have. Are your customers happy with the level of communication, and do they know exactly where they stand? Step two is about being positive. And what do you have to do to be positive? Well, there's lots of things, but it starts with your leadership. Are you as the leader leading your team in a direction, and are they going to follow you? Obviously, we know that panic and worry doesn't help, but we all do. We want to look for some small wins every day. We want to lead our people in the direction where they can follow us and where it makes sense for them and us to go. We want to lead our community and impact them. John F. Kennedy said that in any crisis, you need to look at the Chinese word for crisis, because the Chinese use two brushstrokes to write the word crisis. The one is and stands for danger, and the other for opportunity. And we can have a mindset of danger, and that's good, and we should understand that it's a danger, but it's much better to see the opportunity in where we are today. Now, that's not always that easy. So in a crisis, be aware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity. And that's the sort of message I want to leave with you. So yes, we feel endangered. We feel, we don't know what's happening in the future, but let's open our minds and let's think about the opportunities that are created in this crisis. There are lots of businesses out there who are really doing well because of different shopping patterns, and because people are at home more often. Money is available, but it is being spent differently, and we'll touch on that a little later. So how can I sell, and what is in demand? That's the opportunity that you should look at. What other opportunities are there, and what are the growth industries today? If you look at home renovation, it's an industry that's booming. People are spending much more time at home. They're putting offices at home. They want to have a decent facility, and they need the electronics that go with that. Think of medical, medicine and medical aid. Lots of growth on that side, and now all of a sudden the opportunity in property for medical purposes is becoming more and more in demand. Okay, how can you be more positive every day? That's really important. What is it that you need to do with your staff, and how do you set their RAS in the morning? How do you work with them? Perhaps you need to have a daily team meeting, talk about what they feel like expressing, and what is that worries them, so that you can start thinking about it and perhaps addressing it. Step 3 is about understanding the economic cycles. And if you look at nature, we know that spring passes and one remembers one's innocence. Summer passes and one remembers one's exuberance. Autumn passes and one remembers one's reverence. And what happens in winter? Well, it also passes and one remembers one's perseverance. That was said by Yoko Ono, and really, I think we all understand that we are probably in the winter of an economic cycle. There is all sorts of predictions about 5% growth in South Africa off this smaller base that we were. But that means that there is going to be growth. And how do we make sure that we get part of that? But we need to understand that wave 3 and perhaps a wave 4 going forward is also going to impact our business. Okay, we know that business cycles run between 7 and 10 years. Well, we've gone through a really bad business cycle in 2020. Coming out in 2021, we're starting to grow again. We spoke about the 5% prediction of our economic growth rate. And the question is, in what types of spheres and in industries is that going to happen? Is it going to be mining? Is it going to be property? What is it that we are looking forward to? So knowing the cycles important so we can weather the storm. Yes, we are in winter, but like any winter, there's an end in sight. And this too shall pass. I suppose in one of the comments, this is really bad at the moment, but perhaps 2-3 years from now, we'll look back and say, we really went through some difficult times, but we came out of there and we have a better business, and then now it's growing and it's looking after us. So you need to develop your business strategy and plan for 2021, 2022. So continuously to think about it, to plan it, stand back and say, what am I doing? Is it making sense? Is it making me money? And if it's not, how do I change that? How do I change perhaps, my processes? How do I change my product offering? How can I take cost out of this whole production loop? So you need to change. And we know change is something that we have to get used to. And we know that change always in life continues. There will always be change. So yes, get used to it. Lead the change, so be the change. So look out and see what the change is going to be and lead your team there and make sure the business changes. If you look at the formula for change, really important formula, which says that dissatisfaction, the D times vision, V, plus your first steps must be greater than your resistance to change. So let's turn that around. So for us to change, we have to overcome our resistance to change. And how do we overcome that? Well, we've got to look at our level of dissatisfaction. If we are dissatisfied enough, we're going to look for options. We're going to look at different answers. We're going to want to change things. So, we become satisfied again. Well, that's where you come in. And with your service and your product, we create that vision. So if you work with us and if you buy this product, this is what it will look like. And that's what you're going to experience. And then make it easy to buy. What is it that you need to do to get them? Is it a free trial for a month, for 14 days? You go and look on the internet, and so many of these software packages give you a free entry. So what is it that you can do to make it easy to buy? Looking at your products, your services, your pricing, what is it that you use for delivery, and then also your staffing. Those are all the areas that might need to change. And yes, even the whole business. Perhaps you need to change whatever you are doing. You need to cut back on cost. In step 5, we talk about that. So cutting cost must be one of your top priorities. Preserving cash is one of the things you need to look after and you need to do. The key is to lower cost intelligently and flexibly. Okay, so not damaging your business's core, but understanding that if I cut back and I have to survive, and yes, a lot of us have done so in our own businesses because the income just wasn't there and you couldn't pay the bills otherwise. So yes, you need to minimize the impact. So if you are changing things, what is it that you can do now, but then minimize the long-term impact and repercussion on your business? Because you still want a business that can grow. Remember that cash is king, all right? So you want the cash in your business. You don't want it to sit with somebody else and that they owe you and they've got your goods but they haven't paid you. You evaluate and look at all of your spending options. If you haven't done so already, go back and redo it. Where can you reduce the cost in your business? On the manpower side, in manufacturing, quite often people overlook overtime as an additional cost. So, what is your productivity like and how do you make sure that the team produces what they need to produce? Have you got your KPIs in place and so on? Make sure that if you need to renegotiate on salaries or benefits, that you do that as quickly as possible. And then, yes, postpone and slow things down from a capital perspective. Perhaps, investing right now in business and spending lots of money or borrowing money to do investment in capital, unless you are sure that the growth is going to be there, I would recommend some caution and doing some numbers and looking at some scenarios. So keep on marketing and selling, very importantly, but look at saving money on other areas. Okay, we know a bank is a place that will give you money if you don't need it. Well, those of you who've tried to perhaps extend your overdraft or wanted a loan to, run your business and so on, you will know that the bank has lots of demands and they look at your cash flow very, very tightly. And they're going to look at, can you pay it back? That's really what they're looking at. I want to share with you the cash flow story, the 7 key financial levers that you can use in your business. So what are the things that you can do to leverage your business and make sure you have a better cash flow? And it starts with prices. Yes, and would you want to increase prices in a recession? Well, if you have to, you have to, I suppose. And all of us know that the food prices are just increasing and the inflation on food is high. I've got clients who are putting up their prices by 6 to 7 to 8%, because the market out there is okay with that, firstly, and secondly, because they've had the inflation in their business and they need to pass the cost increases on. So look at price increases in a way that perhaps you have to do them. An 8% price increase on a 10 million revenue income is quite a bit of money. And if you don't do that, will you still be there end of the year or in 6 months' time? See how you can increase volumes. And again, that's not always that easy, but what is it that you can do from a marketing and sales perspective in terms of your operations? How do you increase the volume? You need more customers, you need your existing customers to buy more. Look at your cost of goods sold, depending on your margin, but typically cost of goods sold could be anything from 40 to 80% of the turnover in your business. So make sure you spend that money wisely. If you buy stuff in, get the best price, get the best offering. Looking at your operating expenses again, you all know that, but your rent, is that the best place you can be? Is it affordable? Can you renegotiate that right now? Accounts receivable, are the people paying you on time? Are you invoicing on time? Making sure that the money comes into your business. From an inventory perspective, look at, are you holding inventory? That could be strategic benefit right now, but perhaps some of that inventory could be a burden. If it's slow moving, if it ties up cash, perhaps that's not what you want to do at the moment. Looking at your accounts payable. How do you pay your clients or your suppliers, sorry? Have you got better, and can you create better deals for yourself? Can you negotiate payment terms and so on? So first of all, we want the whole team and the entire team to help with the cash flow and the cash management. Look at credit lines with suppliers if you haven't already done so, but try and extend them. And even if you've got 30 days, can you go to 60 days or 45 days or whatever it is? Okay, looking at your personal side and your own finances, quite often we borrow money and we put money into our businesses to make them survive, and it's our own cash. Refinance your business if you have to. Perhaps you've got equipment that you can borrow money against. And if that's necessary to survive and get the cash flow right, perhaps that's what you need to do. Find your lowest rates, the banks, and which ones are giving you the best rates. Get cash upfront deposits, absolutely. Especially in some of the industries like kitchen cupboards and so on, they demand 60 to 70% cash upfront before they start any work. And this is an important thing, the cash gap in your business. So from when the stock arrives to when the goods are dispatched and paid for, what is that cash gap in your business? And the example here, stock arrives on day 0. We have a 60-day stock holding, and on day 60, we ship the goods out to our clients, and we then expect payment only 60 days afterwards, because that's how it's negotiated. And if you have a 90-day cash gap, if you have a 30-day payable. So can you extend the payables to 60 days, which covers your stock holding perhaps, and so on. So look at that in your business, and what does it look like for you? Looking at staffing, again, one of our biggest costs in our business normally is our staff. Now, if the business is cash flush and we can afford a great staff and good salaries, that's great. But how do you make sure that you at the end of the day avoid the things that you are negatively impacting your business? So try and avoid layoffs, but if you have to, make sure that you do it the right way and make sure that your business survives. I'd rather that you employ people. I think today we need that, but if the business cannot afford it, then you can't employ. So make sure that those things are in place. So example I want to share with you is from Barry Weymiller, who's run a company in 2008. And with the recession in 2008, they decided that given their value system, they're not going to retrench any people, but they are going to cut back. And what they did is they said all employees have to agree to a 4-week unpaid leave scenario. So they can take in the next year, the 4 weeks unpaid as it fits them. They can take it in one go, but they will not be paid for 4 years, for 4 weeks during the year. So everybody had to give up 4 weeks pay. But the benefit is they never retrenched anybody. And you just think about the morale in that company when nobody lost their job. Coming out of that, they had the same people, they could grow the business, and they've seen massive success in that business. Right, so unpaid leave, we spoke about that, pay cuts. One time, what is the attrition? And making sure that, if you have to cut, don't cut 3 or 4 times, but cut as deeply as you can and make sure that you really know what you need to do to make the business survive. There are other smaller things you can do around bonuses, not filling vacancies and so on. But some of those are quite negative. But if you can't afford a bonus, then you can't pay a bonus. And I know that it's not something the staff want to hear, but as the leader and as the business owner, that sometimes you have to make those unpopular decisions. Okay, if you get your staff to work from home, I think that is also an important aspect of growing your business and surviving. So perhaps you can give up the rent and you can save that office rent and just get them to work from home. A survey that was done by Stanford University, over 16,000 workers over 9 months, indicated that there was a productivity increase of 13% from working from home. Now, there's other studies that have shown different results, but I suppose 16,000 people being questioned is a good enough study. So what happens and why would the performance increase? Well, it's more quiet at home. People are more diligent in doing the work. They can do the calls that they need to, or they can do more work and they work longer shifts and they have fewer breaks. So interesting how, as a social creatures, we have bad habits perhaps when at the office. Okay, so whatever it is that you need to do if you work from home, obviously we have all these new technologies. You've got Zoom and Skype. Skype is actually not that popular anymore, probably more Teams. You need to look at the customer service that you want your customers to get. How do you do your banking and your mail, and all those things are important, but they're normally done electronically, so not a major issue. Any communication issues with your staff and with your clients, we know that those are issues that you need to address. And all of us have experienced over the last year some poor service delivery areas. Even if you try to phone the banks at the moment with all their staff working from home, you're really just not getting the answer on the first call. And we know that working from home is probably something that's going to stay with us for quite a long time. If you look at deliveries, so you're now online and selling your product online, you need to make sure you can get it to your clients. So there are a couple of ways that we know that you can do it. There's Takealot, there's all other sort of courier companies. You can go and click and collect. You can also do other things. There's Checkers 6060 and all those things that we know of right now. People prefer shopping online. That's interesting. As we are going to look at some stats in a moment, we'll see that happen. People are going more and more towards online, and they're making buying decisions online with what they see. And about 80% of people, of the buying decision, is already made online today. Okay, so how do you make it easier to buy? Just looking at some of these stats, also done by very reputable companies. More people expect to make a portion of their purchases online post-COVID-19. Okay, so if you just look at the types of products that people are buying and where people are saying that they're going to buy more of, you can see that over-the-counter medicines, groceries, household goods, people are saying, if you look at the expected growth, you can see a plus 10% growth on the 23% that's already there. That's about a 44% growth. So the highest growth you can see in OTCs, in groceries, household supplies, and so on. So that's an interesting, and then look at furnishings. So stuff that people buy from inside their house, the at-home stuff, huge already as a 46% base, but going to grow by a further 30%. So those are just some interesting stats. 15 to 30% growth in consumers who purchase online for most categories. That's a really recent study by McKinsey. If you look at the delivery side, again, we know that people want to distance and social distance, so deliveries at the moment work. If you look at Mr. D, just how many scooters are running around in your area at the moment. People won't come to you, but you will have to go to them. That's an important change. So delivering where they are isolated, where they're staying. What is the packaging and how do you get paid? I think those are important things. Other post-COVID shopping trends are consumers are switching brands at unprecedented rates. And we'll talk about that, why that is happening. Millennials and high income earners are in the lead when it comes to online. I suppose because they have more access to online is another way. And all the smartphones that we have. Brands need to ensure strong availability because if you're not there, people will buy something else. So if you're looking at availability, convenience, and value as the strongest drivers, you can see here that the graph indicates that availability is a huge thing. So the reason for trying a new brand is availability, the number one thing, because what does it mean? Well, stock is not available of the normal brand. People also buy more sort of no-name brands. So brand switching is on the order of the day. It's also about convenience and then value. So those are the 3 to 4 main things that are affecting people's buying decisions. And that's why they switch in brands. So looking at marketing for a business, not to advertise is like winking at a girl in the dark. Okay, so, would you want to do that? No, you wouldn't want to do that. So you need to continue to advertise. You need to make sure that you're visible out there and that you increase your visibility and that people come to you. You want to get more inbound leads. Stopping advertising is to save money. To save money is like stopping your watch to save the time, said Henry Ford. And yes, it's easier said than done, because if you don't have the cash, then are you going to advertise? But I suppose the importance of that is that as soon as you can afford it and re-afford it, make sure that you are going to be out there marketing. And there's also lots of stuff that you can do, perhaps online and social media, that might not cost you an arm and a leg. But test your marketing, right? Make sure that you have a return on investment. What is your cost per lead and what's your acquisition cost? Really important to understand that. Want you to look at marketing rates. Can you get better offers? What are the special rates? And obviously, what you want to do is you want to get your cash up front. We spoke about the cash flow impact earlier. And then we want to measure your 5 ways. So what is the 5 ways? Well, the 5 ways is our proven way to make more profits in your business. And basically what we're saying is you need to really measure and know on a daily and weekly basis how many leads are you getting in and what is your conversion rate on those leads. So not a guesstimate, but an actual. Once you know the leads coming in from your marketing activity and you know what your sales process is delivering in terms of conversion rate, you can predict how many customers you're going to get from those leads. If you have more customers buying more often at a higher value, you're going to increase your revenue. And if you can increase your profit margin by not spending all the money, you can certainly increase your profit. So that's certainly aspects of running your business and measuring it. So making sure that you measure is an important aspect. You want repeat business, okay? And every contact we have with a customer influences whether or not they'll come back. So even in these difficult times, customers demand and want a proper service. And the question is, how do you make sure that that stays in place, and how will you make sure that you give them that service so they come back all the time? Step 11 is about keeping those customers. Existing customers are the best customers. We know that. We want to get all of their wallet spend on our products or services. We don't want them to share it with somebody else. And how do we do that? Well, we can create deals. We can give them money for incentives for annual volume increases or so on. We can obviously give them some bulk buy options. So before the price increases, good reason to buy in bulk, and then to keep customers at all cost. So we know that there's 20% of our customers that probably deliver about 80% of our turnover. And the question is, what are we doing with those 20%? Are we nurturing them? Are we looking after them in a very special way? And do they know, and are they appreciating our extra efforts and things that we put into servicing them? The key is to set realistic customer expectations. We know that. It's not to just meet those expectations, but to exceed them, preferably in an unexpected and helpful way. So that's the sort of stuff we want to work with. And that's what we want to share. So looking at step 12, we spoke about common sense and compassion. Here it's about delivering customer service, clean and don't touch. How do you create that social distancing? How do you create that atmosphere of sanitized shopping in a restaurant, in a retail store? Doesn't matter how you look at it, but how do you make sure that people feel safe when they use your products, services, or your facilities? And then put people first. A really important thing is that in this time, people are suffering. People are really in some ways in a bad state. And how can we help them, and how can we support them? And really be nice to people. You don't know what they're facing every day, where their loved ones are. Are they in hospital? Have they lost a loved one recently? And I'm sure that all of you know somebody who's lost somebody recently. So yes, be calm and considerate. We know that panic doesn't work, but provide the right leadership and in your business. Read up and watch and learn from all the things that are available on social media. Subscribe to the stuff that you can really trust and not the fake news stuff. You need to make sure that people know what the hygiene status is of your business, and what they can expect and how safe they can shop when they get there. And that's the sort of 12th step in terms of common sense and compassion. So just to finish up, I trust that what I've shared with you, you can at least take 3 of these ideas and go and implement them in your business today. Make it a little better, make it a little bit more survivable, and make sure that you create a business that can work for you. If you haven't already done so, but if you are looking at developing a business plan, well, perhaps it's time to go, first of all, go and look at your 90-day business plan. And if you want to talk about that, well, I'm more than happy to share my model with you. Looking at why you should do that, well, we know business has changed, and are you anticipating that change, and are you planning for that change, and are you making changes in your business so that you continue to grow and survive in your business? And what I would like to offer you as well is, if you are interested, as a 60-minute exploration session on your business. So if you are interested, please just email me, bert@bertwiening.com, and I'm more than happy to share my input with you, and we'll spend an hour together and talk about your business, and perhaps give you some new insights and some new ideas on how to make sure you survive and thrive coming out of this COVID situation. So from my side, it's been a great morning, and I'm grateful that I shared this with you. I hope you got some value, and I'd really like to encourage you to make use of this offer, and let's get into action, and let's look at how we can increase your sales and make sure you have a business in 2022. from my side then, any questions, more than welcome to ask them now. And if there's anything that you want us to follow up on, more than welcome to comment on it right now. Guys, anybody? Yes.
Thank you very much, Pat, for a great presentation. It's definitely very insightful, and I think you've touched I think you've touched on critical points, especially when I look at the business that I've been working for, because it's on the kitchen manufacturing or kitchen industry.
Yes.
I'm actually thinking now, you've mentioned that, especially when you really want to increase your cash flow or free up more cash flow, you've
Yes.
touched on deposits.
Yes.
I know that in my business, it's been we've been always asking for 50% a deposit upfront.
Yes.
And then there will be 40% progress payment and 10% after installation.
Yes.
But I'm already thinking now that probably trying to increase that deposit is something that we desperately need, because definitely sales have slowed significantly, because I think
Yes.
our business, you normally find that people who buy our products are actually busy. They're either building new properties or they are renovating their houses, and most of these projects have been almost put on hold because they cannot afford to carry on building
Yes.
these properties, which now makes it very difficult when it comes to cash flow. Will you advise that it's definitely a way to go to try and negotiate a bigger deposit?
Yes, absolutely. And quite often I advise them to try and find out what is their cost. If the cost of the materials and all the things is around 60%, 65% sometimes, try and get the bigger deposit up front. So at least you know that your materials are covered for. And what is that risk is perhaps your labor and other things that if people don't pay it, then you have a problem. I also find that people forget about that last 10%. They don't finish off the work. So there's always a list of outstanding stuff. Okay, and I think that's an important thing. So go and finish the work so that that last 10%, which is your profit, can come back into the business.
Thank you, Pat. That you're 100% correct. Thank you.
Only a pleasure. Carl, any questions from your side?
No, thanks. I think it was very great information that you've shared with us, and it makes you think. You know, you've got to think and go back. There's definitely a situation of me got to go and sit back and start thinking how to communicate better, and maybe some repackaging of some of the services and products that we offer. But yeah, thanks for a great presentation.
Yeah, from my side, if you ever want to just have a quick chat, you know, that free hour is available. So more than happy to link back with you, perhaps do a Zoom call or whatever, and let's just talk about your challenges, and perhaps I can help you with some new perspectives there as well.
Thanks for the offer. I'll get back to you if I'll consider and think about it and come back to you.
Okay, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you for your time, and may you have a wonderful day.
Thanks a lot.
Same to you, Pat. Thank you.
Keep well,
Thanks,
Pat.
guys. Keep well.
All right.
Bye.